So I think Dalmas might annoy a lot of people who would eagerly await it as a lost Australian classic. I'm not really amongst the annoyed. I thoroughly appreciate the film for what it is, especially as an artifact, but also as an act of able, considered film direction from one Bert Delling. Delling's later, perhaps more well known, pure SHIT from 1975 goes a bit too far in the nihilistic, edgy direction for me. Fetishised human suffering for the amusement of suburban twits, selling Australian depravity overseas as film festival novelty. I don't care much for Storks, Scobie, or Peterson either, although what occurs in Dalmas is closer to an attempt at imitating sarcastic narrative Western European auteurs Godard and Antonioni, with a uniquely Australian bend to it, and I feel as though the film does that quite well and effectively. Let me read out some other sources in order to give you an idea. Firstly, we're going to the Wikipedia of Dalmas to read out this plot. An ex-cop, Pete Dalmas, is pursuing a drug runner, Mr. Big. He visits another ex-cop, Rojak, who has become a drug addict. Rojak gives him a lead to a drug dealer called the Plastic Man. He follows the Plastic Man to a seaside camp, and the film turns into a film about the making of the film, with the director and actors discussing filmmaking and drugs. Yeah, another blurb here is also similarly useful. The film starts out as a homage to the thriller genre of a violent ex-cop, Peter Whittle, on a search for his missing partner, but when he runs into an anarchist drug pusher Plastic Man, Peter Cummins, and a group called The Tribe, the film turns into an investigation of manipulated film fiction, communal life, and LSD tripping. Whittle freaks out and gets hold of an axe to teach the boom swinger a lesson. Next thing you know, the Tribe is sitting around talking reflexively about filmmaking and getting allocations of short ends to live the dream that everyone can be a director, preferably while also getting high. Now, we'll be reading out this. This is from GeoCities. This is linked via the Wikipedia. Dalmas, a milestone in Australian psychedelic cinema. The first half of Dalmas follows an ex-cop's passage through the Melbourne drug scene in search of an anarchistic acid dealer, Plastic Man, who he eventually tracks down to a seaside commune. Here the film turns inside out, the camera reverses its gaze, becoming a documentary about the crew, the communal tribe, and the shared experiences of drug taking in the filmmaking process. Only the first half of Dalmas is scripted. The second part of the film becomes an exercise in self-expression, during which the distinction between cast and crew is dissolved, leaving all free to contribute to the film outside of normal directorial control. Part 2 is free of structured narrative. In the first part of the film, we are like slaves, says Bert Delling. It's an eccentric study of the problems of trying to capture honest experience in film, and of attempting to create a cinema propelled by personal revelation, and ultimately frustrating experience for those involved, although not for the audience, jarringly represented in a guttural, screaming exhibition of incredible intensity by one of the tribe. Of course, he ends up by asking, is that enough? As Delling concedes, the problem lies in the nature of film, a crude linear form used to convey a complex, multi-layered experience. One can invite comparisons to Fassbinder as well, particularly Beware of a Holy Whore. That's my aside, not this side's, but maybe they wouldn't disagree. Dalmas conceives of narrative cinema in terms of its illusionistic processes, but contrastingly uses its reflexive device in order to contrast the constructedness of the first half of the film against the more truthful personal expression of second half, where participants are freed from cinematic role-playing both on and off screen. A key work in independent Australian cinema of its time, this experimental feature was made on a collective basis primarily by members of the communal artistic performing group The Tribe. Heavily influenced by alternative culture, the film also impresses of its formal innovation. The fictional framework of crime melodrama constitutes the first half of the film. As an aside, it's a touch Coogan's Bluff, if you will, from America, but more lo-fi, I suppose. Crime melodrama constitutes the first half of the film. As the scene shifts from city to country, the fiction is taken over by a more reflexive process of group expression, which could not be encompassed by conventional performance. Change your perceptions and you change your life. Change enough lives and society falls, and that, my friends, is anarchy. That's a quote from Plastic Man in this film. He's saying that in the Melbourne City Square in 1973. And let me read out a couple of user reviews from IMDb to illustrate my point here. The first review is mildly positive. It's from 11th of December 1998. Hairy Nosed Wombat. Experimental film with the production crew mixing with the cast. This film has the same plot and structure as Norman Mailer's Maidstone, with LSD replacing alcohol. It starts as a police murder mystery. The hero eventually enters a picnic with the rest of the cast and crew who are imbibing LSD. He attacks the director, Bert with an axe, which forces them to reevaluate their relationship. In Maidstone, there is a party where cast and crew get drunk instead of an LSD picnic. I enjoyed Dalmas as posing interesting questions about relationships between the crew of a film unit in a poetic way. Delling and the crew appeared relaxed about drugs, whereas the lead actor was hired to be the lead. Maidstone was an alcoholic self-indulgence of Norman Mailer's. I do not know whether Delling or Mailer got the idea first. When did Maidstone come out? I'm not familiar with it. I know of Mailer's Wild 90, which is an infamously incoherent film, and also in Maidstone was 70. I'm just going to assume that Mailer had the idea first, but Mailer also responsible for Tough Guys Don't Dance. Oh man, oh god. Anyway, but to illustrate, this is someone who was disappointed of the film, and frankly, this will be the reaction of most of you. I know some people are keen, I like these old gems and they're obscure. You're going to be an impatient little twit with this one too. Awful, says Jimmy-161 on the 20th of September 2007. Not even social media era, this guy felt this way. This is pretty bad and I can't imagine why anyone would want to watch it. Incredibly, I saw it at the cinema in about 1978. Way before social media epoch. It's quite good for about the first 5 minutes, after which the plot is abandoned and we see a lot of the cast and crew in some sort of communal house discussing how things should develop. Apparently they eventually decided to spend the rest of the budget on LSD, and the final scene features the cast and crew lying around on a hillside tripping. Man, this acid is really weird. Trust me, there are a few things more boring than watching hippies tripping. I suppose unless you were also partaking. Max Gillers and John Dolligan went on to have impressive careers, but I imagine they'd prefer to forget Dalmas. Well, I wouldn't. And I hope you enjoy these screen caps. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it really immensely.